Hello everyone, and hello, you come to our group presentations of interviewing a manager. So can you describe a word or organizational culture that you apply to your employees?
I don't micromanage, which is maybe contentious in today's business environment. But because it's a startup, most of our people are driven and they're very good at what they do. You don't need to, step on their toes, so to speak, every couple of hours. You give them the task, and if they don't get it done, if they don't produce, then maybe you talk with them.
So what kind of leadership style do you usually go for?
My leadership style is cause the least amount of resistance. So I want to help them, I want to guide them, but I don't want them to feel like I'm on their shoulders or on their back or anything like this.
So if a team member is underperforming, what steps do you take to improve their performance?
If a team member is underperforming, I first just talk to them, ask them if there's anything going on, anything that we could help with, or if they don't understand something. Basically, just the first step is always communication, right? If it continues, then maybe we sit down and have an official chat, and then, if it still continues and doesn't get better, then we start looking at forced training. We will retrain them if we need to, and then ultimately, if it just won't get any better, then I guess we would talk about termination, but that's not really happened since the very beginning. So,
as you have said about the strategic planning, so how do you ensure your team goals align with the overall company vision?
Most people understand the vision, I think. The fewer people you have, the easier that is to manage. When we have new employees, for example, I would probably say the onboarding process, the training process, largely involves explaining that vision.
After you have created a strategy for your team, so how do you organize it? Like, how do you delegate the work and ensure everyone has clear roles and responsibilities? Or how do you manage the resources within your team to fulfill the goals?
Yeah, good question. As I said before, I do think that less management is more in a way. I manage only when I need to, if that makes sense. When we have a new project, for example, that's when I will sit down and delegate a team lead, and I will say, this is what your team needs to accomplish, right? And I will let them decide if they have a team meeting with me or if they do it by themselves, if that makes sense.
Here is, what role can business leaders play in providing management training?
I would say the first most important thing would be leading by example. To manage your employees the way that you hope you would be managed in the same situation. And I think when those employees become ready to do that, I think they would do the same.
Is there a process for continuous improvement in your managing the employees?
One of the methods that we do for that is sink or swim. Especially with our team leads, we'll push them into the situation and say, let me know what you need to get this done. And usually they do very well, and sometimes they don't. And when they don't, that's when we train them on how to approach that next time or moving forward.
So in your career, what was the biggest problem you had to solve, and how would you plan to deal with it?
I've never had a problem.
Yeah, boy.
I guess the biggest problem was two employees at one point refused to work together. How did I solve it? I basically sat them down in a room, just the three of us, and I forced a conversation between the three of us. We found at least common ground, being civil. I'm not going to make anybody like anybody, but I had to make them at least do their job and be civil if they both wanted to keep working, because they were both actually good employees. So that's how I dealt with that.
Can you give us a piece of advice as some suggestions when I want to be a manager in the future?
Managing relationships is probably the most important thing for almost any career that you choose in business. So if you're going to be a manager, then perfect. If you're going to be even just a business developer, right? A lot of your job is going to be, how do you manage your relationships with your superiors, with your colleagues? So I would say the number one thing you should focus on is definitely relationship management. That's how I would suggest.